Hi, I'm Mary, and if you're a single Christian woman over the age of 40, you love God, but maybe you just don't really love being single, this is for you. Today, I want to talk about why men don't respect you and how to stop devaluing yourself in relationships. I remember one time I was dating somebody and things were apparently falling apart. And a friend of mine asked me, "Well, what do you want?" And all I could say was, "Well, I want him to love me." And my friend was like, "Okay, but what do you want in this relationship?" And all I could identify was, "I just want him to love me." And I had never really thought about, how do I want to feel? How do I want to be treated? Um, what's important to me? What are my values? I really didn't have standards. And for a long time, when people have said, "Do you think you're single because you're too picky?" I've always said, no, I think I wasn't picky enough. I really didn't have I didn't know what I wanted. I just wanted someone to love me. Well, that's a pretty low bar. And if I met a man who acted like he might possibly love me someday in the future, that was good enough for me. Well, that's the mindset that really cost me a lot of years. And when I say years, I mean years of being taken for granted, years of being devalued, years of trying to get someone to love me who just didn't. And a lot of times, I think as women, we think that if we're just supportive enough, if we're patient enough, if we love this person enough, then eventually this man will see our value. If you ever watched the first Sex and the City movie, and so Carrie is finally going to marry Mr. Big, which is interesting because what was it like for 10 plus years on the TV show? She was like hoping he would love her, and then, he didn't, but they're finally getting married, and he stands her up at the altar, and so she kind of puts her life back together and moves on. And then she finds a bunch of emails that had ended up in her spam from him. Like, he all of a sudden realized she's the woman for him and he really loves her and really wants her. And I think a lot of times as women, we think that's a possibility. Like, this guy didn't care about me, didn't love me, didn't value me. I was like a consolation prize. He was happy to tolerate me. I'm better than being alone. And we think, so if I'm just really fantastic, he will suddenly wake up one day and realize how great I am. And you know something, sis? That doesn't happen. Because the truth is, after years of not respecting you, he's not going to suddenly respect you. That doesn't even make any sense. Respect doesn't come from how much you give. It comes from what you allow and what you tolerate. So if you tolerate behavior that devalues you, then you're going to get more of that. I've seen that with my students. I've had sometimes new faculty members ask me, "Well, what do you do when students disrespect you in class?" And I'm like, they don't disrespect me in class. And if somebody tries it, I stop it immediately, sometimes including, but not limited to, removing them from the classroom. No, I'm not going to be disrespected in front of my class. So no, they don't try that. When you allow that behavior, you're showing everyone that it's okay. So let's look at some mindsets that you might have, or some patterns that are causing you to devalue yourself. And it's when you devalue yourself, men don't see your value. And when they don't value you, they don't respect you. So first of all, if you're lowering your standards or just ignoring them altogether, when I finally got some standards, I had a list of things that I wanted in a man, but I wouldn't follow it. And I looked at what I said was important to me, but then I took it as a suggestion, not a requirement, because, I didn't want to be too picky. I didn't want to be difficult, but standards only work if you uphold them. And if you're not sticking to it, it's not a standard. It's a preference. And preferences are easy for you to ignore. Number two, if you excuse disrespect. I used to explain behavior away saying, well, he's just busy. He's going through a divorce. He just went through a breakup. He's got a lot going on. You know how men are. He probably didn't mean anything by that. I'm just being oversensitive. But the truth was that maybe I did have a problem with the behavior or what he said. But, I just didn't want to be difficult. And so instead of addressing the problem, I just adjusted myself. And when you do that, the problem doesn't go away. You still have the problem, and now you have a new problem, which is you're not even standing up for yourself. Number three, maybe you're not communicating clearly. Listen, men don't read in between the lines and analyze every single word like women do. Men respect communication that is clear and calm and concise. You don't have to over-explain things. You just clearly and concisely state what you want to say. And for me, this was always a big problem because I didn't want to come across as controlling. I didn't want to be negative, so I would just be quiet. And I thought that if I were easygoing, that would make me desirable, but it didn't. It made me a doormat, okay? So just staying quiet and not standing up for yourself makes you a doormat, and nobody's going to respect a boundary if they don't even know it's there. Can you imagine, what if you were, walking in a nice field on a beautiful spring day and just enjoying it, and all of a sudden a guy shows up with a shotgun and says, "Get off my property." You'd be like, what? Had there been a fence with a sign saying, "This is private property, do not enter," a fence is a boundary. And the same is true for us, that we need to have clear boundaries for other people. Now, they're probably not going to know right off the bat what is one of your boundaries. And listen, a lot of times my experience has been sometimes men test women the same way that little boys will test their mommies. So a little boy might, do something kind of mischievous, or, something he kind of knows he's not supposed to do, and he'll do it, and then he'll look to see if mommy's looking. And sometimes men are like that. And I had a man tell me one time that his friends, the wives of his friends were all, the comment he said was, they keep a tight leash on him. And what he was saying was, that was good. I'm not saying you need to be controlling. I'm not saying that you can't let a man be who he is. But listen, men like boundaries and rules, okay? They like to know what is acceptable and what is not. And when you don't communicate that clearly, they don't know where they should act or go or not go. And these things matter, because when you are tolerating behavior that does not line up with your values, it's not just about this relationship. It's affecting how you feel about yourself. Because when you're tolerating somebody else disrespecting you and you're not checking them, you're agreeing with them. And so really what you're saying is, I don't deserve to be treated with any respect or value. Well, of course, if you felt that way, you would question your own worth. You would start to feel resentful. And, a lot of times we resent the other person, but I think many times we're truly resenting ourselves. Like, why won't we stand up for ourselves? And then over time, you just start to lose confidence. And it's like you just start to become smaller and smaller and smaller. And so as women, we have to make a shift in terms of teaching other people how to treat us with respect. This is not about being aggressive. It's not about being bossy. It's not about being loud or trying to prove a point. It's about saying, you know what, I have a standard. Either you meet it or you don't. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that it is not only is it okay, but it is good for all involved when I set a boundary. For example, when a student catches me after class and says, I have some questions about investing in the stock market. Can we talk about it? I say, yes, certainly. Come by my office hours. Because generally speaking, right after class, catching me to have some big conversation, that's not the right time for me to do that. Normally I have scheduled a meeting or I have some things I need to do to prepare for the next class. That's why I have office hours, so that students can come by. And it's not about saying, I don't want to talk to you, or what your questions are just not important to me. That's not it. It's saying, my time is important. Your time is important. I want to be able to pay attention and listen to what you're saying and give you my best guidance that I can. And in order for that to happen, my standard is I do that during office hours. Stop by anytime. Okay, again, that's not being harsh or mean. Now, a lot of times the student, they don't want to be bothered to make a trip to my office. They just want to do what's convenient for them. And I totally understand that. But listen, here's the thing. If they're asking me for help, like, I'm not asking to speak to them. They're asking to speak to me. So therefore, you need to come and speak to me during my office hours, which is the time I have set apart for those conversations. And the same is true in all of our relationships. When you don't set a boundary with people, you're violating your own standards, and then you're going to be resentful, which is really unfair because the other person never knew from the first place what was acceptable and not acceptable because you never communicated that. And that's not good because you're showing up resentful. They don't know why. And then you're never giving your best because you have this air of resentment floating around that they did something wrong, but you haven't communicated it. So, I think a lot of times we believe that, well, I need to accommodate, I need to be generous, I need to be giving, and all of those things are true. But also, you cannot give what you don't have. So you have to give yourself that respect, and you have to treat yourself with value, because then you have everything you need to show up and interact with other people from a really pure place. For me, as an example, when I learned how to respect and value my time, my opinions, my energy, that frees me up to not need my students to do a certain thing to keep me okay. Okay, I don't need my students to act a certain way in order for me to feel like I'm doing a good job. And because I respect myself and I respect my own time and energy, I'm very clear on what is acceptable and what is not. And what that does is it really just makes everything a lot cleaner and a lot simpler. So, for example, respecting yourself and valuing yourself might mean some things like ending a date early, or saying no to a request, or just walking away from a situation or an interaction that is devaluing or disrespecting you. And it's not about punishing the other person, it's about honoring yourself. Having a wonderful life is about having a life that you value, you enjoy, you love, that you feel peaceful, you are able to enjoy your life and the people in it. You're not constantly looking for someone else to give you something. And in doing that, the reason I call it a wonderful life is because when you have that life where you're plugged in, you're committed, and you're feeling respected and valued by yourself, then you are happy. And happy women are more attractive to men. But frankly, if your soulmate never shows up, you're happy anyway. And that's what you wanted the whole time. So I would encourage you to start to become aware of interactions or situations in your own life where maybe you're being devalued or disrespected. And I'd love to hear your comments. Also, in case you're getting over a broken heart, because it can be very difficult to feel valued and respected when you just feel broken. So underneath this video, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can look in the show notes. I've put my free training, The ABCs of Healing, totally free, and it helps you overcome heartbreak so that you can start to feel whole and complete again. And I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.